The best 9 to 5 to earn more money. Hi everyone, Dan back here from the Geek Physique for another video. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. We had a little break, but we're back now and I'm here to talk about the 9 to 5. I feel like it does get a bit of a bad rap. I've been on my own journey with growing my two businesses. One of them is in tech, which I've been in for 7 to 8 years now, and the other one is I'm an online coach, and this is what I do as part of this channel. But we help guys get to their goals in under 2 hours a week without strict diets and without motivation as well. So I have those two main businesses, but the tech business was more centered around the 9 to 5 and is more centered around the 9 to 5. And I do want to say that I do think the 9 to 5 gets a bad rap within kind of the hustle culture space that you'll see online. And I went down a bit of a rabbit hole when I started growing my coaching business, thinking that, the 9 to 5 was all bad and it came with mostly negatives, like a restriction of freedom and things like that. And that I romanticized about the idea of finding, of loving what you do and finding your passion, right? And I've actually come to, I think, a much more level-headed position, which is even if you find something that has more meaning to you or that you enjoy doing just for the sake of doing it, not just for the outcome, there are going to be days where you just don't want to do it. You just don't feel like working. And this may seem like an obvious statement to a lot of people, but I think I genuinely went down the path of thinking that if you find what you love to do, you will always be able to kind of motivate yourself. And it's that old adage of motivation is kind of useless. I tell this to a lot of our clients, motivation is useless. Discipline is what you need. And discipline comes from doing the thing regardless of how you feel. And I have long accepted that about the gym, about my fitness, that even though I love fitness, even though there's workouts I look forward to doing, there are times I wake up in the morning and working out is literally the last thing I want to do. And it took me a while, honestly, to accept that it's the same exact thing with your work. And what I also realized is in growing my coaching business, growing my personal training business, there are things that I love about doing it. There's things I don't love about doing it. And it's the same thing with my tech career as well. So in my tech career, I work on a tool called ServiceNow. You may or may not have heard of it. It's mostly a B2B tool. It's very big in the market that it's in. And so it's quite lucrative. It's a very good opportunity if you're looking to get into tech, and I'll come back to that in a bit. But what I realized is there's actually a lot of pros to that which don't come with being an online coach, right? And so I just want to make the point here that the 9 to 5 gets that bad rap because you often think that you should be doing a lot more like slick or sexy or something like that, something that looks cool online. And of course there are pros and cons to each one. But what I would say, here's a key thing to take away from this point. If you're in an industry or you want to get into an industry which is more part of the traditional 9 to 5, you're maybe you're a bit even jaded looking at stuff online, you've tried to grow a few side hustles and there's like a clear path to victory. And a lot of people even give university a bad rap, and that's maybe another video. But for industries where a degree still makes sense, like tech, and you don't need a degree, by the way, which I'll come to later as well, but it's a clear path to victory, I think, still for tech, is you can get a degree in a certain technology or a specific part of tech, then get into a tech job quite easily with a decent degree. And there's loads of academies, things like that. Again, I'll come back to that later. But it is a really good thing to get into. And it brings me actually back to my next point, which is it's a scalable industry, right? So this is the key reason, or one of the key reasons I love tech, is that you can learn a skill, and oftentimes it's very delivery based. A lot of jobs are you need to do something right now, so you can't maximize the time you're spending, right? Whereas with tech, if you can write a script better than the next person, or it took you 10 minutes to write a script when you first started, but now it takes you 5, you've then doubled your efficiency, right? And another thing which is cool in tech is you can build scalable models, scalable architecture, right? Drive things from data rather than from the code. If you know tech, you'll know what I mean. But an example is, if you want a system to work in a certain way, if you build the logic in the data rather than in the code, then you can change the data over time quite easily rather than having to change a complicated script, and that makes the system scalable. All of these things mean that not only can you scale the work you do, but in theory, if you're smart, you can also scale your earning potential in that industry as well. And so you can start in tech in a normal 9-to-5 job, but there's so much freelance opportunity and an opportunity to build a real business there. A lot of the best people I've met in tech have either done freelance at least once or twice, or have built a proper business, not just a small business, but built into a medium-sized business and beyond. And a lot of people then sell to bigger businesses and get bought out, and they ride off into the sunset. And it all comes from the idea that they've got a skill set, but it's a scalable skill set. It's a skill set where clients need them to deliver something in a certain amount of time. The clients need to know what good looks like, and the consultancy or the people doing the build can set expectations at the right level, surpass those expectations. The clients are pleased, but then the consultancy may be able to buy themselves back time, which they could then spend elsewhere. And it's these kinds of ideas which are great, right? Another obvious example is if you were to build an app, and then a lot of people use that app, you've built it once, okay, you maybe need to update it so many times, but you don't have to work on it a certain amount of time every day to get a certain amount of money. It's based on like the subscriber base, right? So what tech gives you is it gives you a lot of different ways to maximize the output, maximize the work you put in. You don't just have to turn up every day. You might have to do that in the beginning, but it's all up to you, your ability level, but also your aptitude to learn and how much you want to push the envelope and try out new technologies and try out certain things that will then help you scale that skill set. And I believe that it is one of the quickest ways to maximize your income in the 9-to-5, right? And so that brings me on to my next point. Why tech? So I've already talked about it being scalable, but in my experience, and not just for myself, but all of my peers around me, you know, a lot of the people I knew when I first started out, I went to an academy, which is kind of like a good stepping stone from when you've got a degree or when you're just starting out. And what they'll do is they'll train you up even more on top of your degree skills, and then they'll put you on a client site. So you're kind of right in the thick of it. It's a bit of a baptism of fire. You have to kind of learn on the job a little bit. But if you've got a good tech degree underpinning you, you should have the capability to pick things up and do it. But again, it's very much on you to pick up as much responsibility as you can, to take on new projects, to be a bit of a trailblazer. And the cool thing about tech is you can see where there's insufficiencies. You can see where there's improvements need to be made. And it's not like other jobs, again, where you have to be put into a position to sometimes make change. If you write a script to make something better, and sometimes it's not even asking, it's going with the solution and going, I've made this better. And they go, oh wow, I thought that would take ages, right? There's so many gaps and opportunities to do that, and then you've just made a name for yourself. And if that doesn't do a lot to get you a promotion, then you can put that on your CV as a thing that you've done. And again, a lot of people will wait for someone to tell them that they can do something in their job, just generally, and then they'll put it on their CV like, my job needed me to do X, so then I can put it on my CV to feel like I'm justified in putting it on my CV. It's a bit different in tech, where you can go above and beyond off your own back improve things which weren't maybe in your job description when you started out, or even that your managers asked you to do. And then you can add that to your CV. So if that isn't recognized in your job, and your skill set's not being recognized, and you're only being judged on the years you've done the job, which is again what a lot of people have, this common misconception that you have to do your time. There is a certain amount of that, I won't lie. I won't say that you can just cut corners, but for sure, if you're putting in a lot more effort, you've got a lot more ability, and you're genuinely solving problems that need to be solved, and you're maybe 2 years in the job and someone else is 5 years in the job, if they don't recognize your ability, then you can quickly sell yourself in the right way, in a truthful way, to a better employer who's going to recognize your ability, and you can kind of jump the queue in a way, but in the right way, because you've put in the effort to solve the right problems. You haven't just done what you've been told to do. You've been a bit of a trailblazer, like I said earlier. So that's another reason why tech is so good. I think it's a very fast path to increasing, ultimately, your not just your responsibility and your ability level, but then your salary, right? That's why this is the point of this video, and that's how I got you to click. That's another reason why I think it's the best 9 to 5 to earn more money, because out of everyone I know from school, and you think of all the people that did well in school and that you thought would do well and all of this sort of things. And when I was part of my academy, all the people that came from like humble beginnings, and we all talked about like earning potential and things like that. Of course you would. Within the first year of my job, the earning potential that I believed was possible by let's say the age of 30 was completely destroyed in my first 6 months. And I realized that it was like 2, 3, maybe even 4 times as much as what I thought. And just to give you an idea, a ballpark figure, I had an expectation on myself that if I could earn like 30k by the time I was, or like 40k, sorry, by the time I was 30, I would be happy. And you might be watching this thinking, that's nothing, Dan, or maybe you're thinking that's still a respectable wage. Whatever you're thinking, the reason I thought that is my dad's, he didn't grow up in this country. He's from Guyana. He worked his butt off his whole life to give us the life that we had. And he earned around that amount of money, maybe a bit more at some points. But I thought, because of my dad earned that amount of money, like that would be amazing. If I could get to that by the time I'm 30, it'd be quicker than my dad got there, and I could have a good, stable life. Within the first 6 months, I realized these things that I'm telling you now, that there were people there in the job that were young, that were trailblazers, that were solving the right problems, that were freelance, that were what we call contracting, IT contractors, which you may have heard of in the UK at least. And I know main parts of Europe as well, you can freelance in the same way. And they were earning amazing money, 2, 3, maybe even up to at least 3 times as much as what I just quoted you. And they were less than 5 years in the job, some of these people. And you're thinking like, you're comparing it to maybe something like a doctor, which would take 7 years. And I don't even know if doctors earn as much as over like 6 figures after 7 years of their degree. I don't know if they do, but I only ever heard of people like doctors and lawyers earning that much, or bankers, right? And so for me, another way of putting it is, I feel that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room in tech either. This is another point which I'll expand on a bit more when I cover my next point, but I want to talk about it a bit here, is again, why tech? I feel that there's a big gap in tech. The gap is for people who have personable skills. And you might be thinking, well, if you're a techie, you're a bit of a geek. And you would be right, but a lot of techies who are super smart, like the sharpest people in the room, don't get the recognition they deserve because they're not good at putting themselves forward for things or shouting about their work. And ultimately in life, even in a 9 to 5 job, people like to think that they don't have to sell in their job, or they don't have to market themselves. Going into a performance review is literally marketing yourself, right? So if you are super smart and you're writing the best scripts possible, unless you have a really good manager that recognizes your skill, which again, can be few and far between, you have to shout about it. You have to justify the benefits of what you're doing, why what you're doing is so good. And then even more senior people who are more business focused or more like project focused or whatever it is, they might not get the techie stuff. So unless you can communicate the business benefit of what you're doing, someone techie might go, wow, that script was really hard to write, or wow, that technical problem you solved was amazing. But unless you can convert it into language people, the more layman would understand, or not layman, but the more business focused who are more skilled in another area but not technically skilled, you won't get the recognition you deserve for that thing. And so what I'm saying is, if you're like average or just above average, I tell this to so many people in tech all the time who are starting out, and I have experience doing this because I was part of a startup. So even when I was like in my first year of the job, second year of the job, I was doing interviews for the startup. I had people who were junior underneath me working on projects, even though I was like in my early 20s. And I would tell them the same thing, especially if they were super technical and they were shy. I would say to them, it doesn't matter how good technically you are, you will not get paid what you deserve unless you fight for it, right? And so another reason tech's so good is if you're someone who has a bit of technical ability, but you can chat a little bit, then you may do better than someone else who you thought in school, oh, this person's so smart, how am I gonna, and I know it's not about comparing yourself, but I'm just saying, that's sometimes how we view ourselves, right? You might think this person was smarter than me in school, so how would I ever be able to do a technical job? Look, if you're average or just above average technically, but you can sell yourself, you can put yourself forward for things, you could surpass that person very easily in responsibility, in the projects you pick up, in the challenges you take on, and ultimately the money you earn. Okay, next point, how to get into tech. So I talked about a little bit how I got into tech. I joined an academy. Well, let me start from the beginning. When I was in school, I was in the bottom set for a lot of things, but I did well at maths and I did well at IT. And tech was, apart from fitness, I like tech and I like fitness. I know those things can be a bit opposed, but hence the geek physique is the name. But the school I went to there was a lot of high performers. Hence, I was on the bottom set for a lot of things. And I actually thought I was quite stupid. And it was only until I left, I did my first year of sixth form in UK. That's like you're about 16-ish at that point. And then I went to college. And I thought, because I went to college, which is what you usually do, you either do the first year of sixth form in the UK or you go to college, right? You would do 2 years at college or 2 years at sixth form, and then you might go to university or then start working, as an example, right? You could just start working at 16, but that is the two academic routes, is like 2 years at college or 2 years at sixth form. Anyway, did my first year at sixth form, and then I thought, this is not for me. I did get an A in my like AS levels in IT, I think it was. But then I got like 2 Ds. So I got DAD. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do with myself? I didn't feel very smart, like I said, because of the environment I was in. I found what they call a foundation degree in the UK, which is, I thought when I joined it, would put me a year behind. So at this point, I joined college. I thought I was kind of redoing that first year of college or sixth form. But then, I didn't even know this when I joined the college. Actually, I'm missing a step. Sorry guys, I know this is a bit complicated, but there's a lot of key points here I want to make, that your perception of what you need to get into something, be it tech or be it anything else, is largely dependent on your will to try. You might hear that and go, yeah, but I didn't do well in my exams. How am I going to get into there? I didn't have the UCAS points to do this college course, and I just rang them and I spoke to them. And I spoke well, and I talked about my experience with IT, and I made an agreement with them. And I said, if you give me a chance, even though I don't have the UCAS points, if I don't do well enough by Christmas, kick me out. If I do, keep me on. And they accepted it, right? And it's just a way of showing you guys, like, a lot of people will say to me, I can't get a job, or I can't get in shape, and the amount they've tried is pitiful. Like, oh, I applied for one job this week, or a few, or I had one interview, so I gave up applying, and then I lost the interview. Happens all the time. I hear that all the time. You should stack leverage in your favor, always in life. And this is one of the first times I found out about this is it doesn't matter what the rules implicitly say, unless you're like trying to break them. If you're like bending them slightly, you're going, right, okay, and it says on paper I need 100 or 160 UCAS points, whatever it was at the time. Just ring them and see what they say. What do you have to lose? Just time and effort, right? So if you're willing to put in the time and effort, you could get an opportunity that someone else might not get, who's at the same level as you, and they go, how did you get that course? And loads of people ask me this, how did you get the course? Like, you didn't have the UCAS points. I just rang them. I just made the effort, put myself forward, made a good case for myself, made an agreement, got into the college course. Amazing. Now, I thought I was 1 year behind. And it was only in my first few weeks I found out that if you did the first 2 weeks of this college course and got a merit, because it was like pass, merit, and distinction was the levels. If you got at least a merit, you could go into your final year automatically at university, which would actually put me a year ahead. So I was like, damn. So not only have I got into a course I didn't think I had the points for, just by making the effort, it made me realize, and then I've realized that I could actually put myself a year ahead. It made me realize that it's not just the one route that people tell you there is. And it's not like, again, the whole point of this video is the 9 to 5 is not, it gets a bad rap, right? And there are ways of earning a good amount of money in the 9 to 5. But there's also a way to do the 9 to 5 without having to do it in the way that your parents think you should, or your teachers think you should. Whatever level you're at, whatever limits you're putting on yourself, just put yourself out there. Just try it. Do not give up. Keep chipping away at the tree, because there is a way that it will fall down, okay? It's the key message here at the start of this story. Now, I quickly realized that I thought IT was a strength of mine, but like tech and scripting, which I heard from people would be like crazy, I realized I had a decent ability for it, and I did well at it. Now, one of the reasons I love tech, goes back to why tech, but how I got into it was, it's not like other things, again, where you have to wait until you're in the actual job to think how will you do at this. If you get a spec, you write a script, it delivers on the spec. The job in real life is pretty much very similar. So what you're doing at university from the get-go, if you're in a decent course, directly maps as experience to the job. A lot of people will do university courses or college courses or stuff at school, and it so is not applicable, like Pythagoras' theorem. Like, who's using that in a lot of jobs right now who are earning a lot of money? Not a lot of people, right? Whereas a lot of scripters, a lot of coders, a lot of people in tech are genuinely using the bare basics of what they learn in object-oriented programming. If they learn Java, if they learn whatever it is, if they learn Python, whatever language they've learned at uni or at their college course, that will directly map to them doing well at their actual job. So that's another way you can get into tech, is you can do coding courses online. You don't need a degree, you don't need a college course, and I'll give you some examples in a second of some of the best people I know in tech don't have any qualifications. I'll come back to that in a sec. But to finish my story very quickly, I went from thinking I wasn't doing so well at a good school, but thinking I wasn't doing so well, thinking I couldn't get into a course, to getting into the course just by sheer will determination, doing well at the course, and then graduating in a year early than all of my other peers from my original school. And loads of people were like shocked, because they thought, we never knew you were smart at school. And it was like, no, I just put in the work rather than I was ultra smart. So it's to give you, again, how to get into tech, put in the work. I'm going to give you some more examples. A few of my close friends went through this route, which is they didn't really have much qualifications, or they didn't finish their uni degree. And one of my friends in particular, he was homeless at the age of 19. His name's Zorro. His podcast is on my YouTube channel. You can find that and hear about his story. But he had like pretty much no qualifications, if I remember correctly. He worked his way up through the service desk. So he joined a service desk, and loads of people can get service desk level jobs, but no one wants to because of it is a grind. You're on the phones all day, and it's kind of like sales in a way, but it's like support, right? Or it's more like customer service, sorry, not sales. More like customer service where your support, right? So you're picking up the phone, and if you can solve more calls than the next person, you're going to get promoted, you're going to be seen, right? But more than that, again, here's the crucial point. Don't just do what you're told in your job. Think of ways you can make things better. And if people are trying to keep you in your box, make them better without them even asking. Because your managers, as someone up the tree is going to recognize that and go, this person knows what they're talking about. They're actually solving problems that we genuinely need solving. They've told me they've been spending extra time to do something. How is that going to look bad on you, right? People complain about having to turn up to their job and do this and do that, but if you make the best of a bad situation sometimes, it can put you in an even better situation than you realize. And so that friend, my friend Zora, he then got, I think I remember this correctly, roughly, but he got a certain responsibility to improve the processes as part of his service desk job. And then he went into another role, improving process and things like that, and went into like what we call a service management role in IT service management. But then that was kind of his way of getting into a more senior tech role. So look for service. The ways that you can get into tech are, you can go the conventional route of doing a college course or a degree. You can do a coding course online. You can join a service desk level job. And what I would say amongst all of these things is get into work. If you want the fast track, I would say get into some kind of tech related job, like some support level job, like a service desk role, and just put yourself forward for a lot of roles. And even if it's like remote desktop type roles where you're literally telling someone to turn off their computer, turn it back on, it's just getting your foot in the door. Once you get your foot in the door somewhere, if you can improve everything at that place and you can make a name for yourself, you can then jump to another place, increase your salary, increase your job skills, take on more responsibility, do training courses. A lot of big tech companies will pay for their employees to be trained because they want to upskill you, right? That's a golden opportunity. Again, people don't want to take on more training because it's more responsibility. It's a golden opportunity to upskill yourself. And then if they don't recognize it and give you a pay rise to recognize the work you've put in to upskill yourself, then you're not really getting paid your market value. So then you can move to to another company that will recognize your market value and your new skill set, right? And so many people I know who have moved jobs. They're not job hoppers. They'll spend a few years at a given job at least, but then if they're not being recognized for their value, they'll move. The salary jumps are massive as long as you put yourself forward at the right level for what your skills are worth. It's not necessarily about what you earn at a given moment and what you should go to next. A lot of jobs it is like that, but in tech, it's about what you can deliver, about the problems you can solve. If there's a particular technology like Amazon Web Services or something like that, and you have a specific niche within AWS that you know and it's very sought after, look at the jobs in the job sphere, what they're asking for at salary or freelance level. Don't think of what you're at now, and you could 2 times your money in a job hop. You can do that. Genuinely, you can. So there's some ways to get into tech. There's some reasons you should get into tech. Now, what's the earning potential? Okay. Probably the reason you clicked on this video. So as I gave you a bit of a clue earlier I thought, if I could earn like 40K a year by the time I was 30, I would be laughing. I'd be really happy. That whole expectation was shattered within my first year of working in tech, because I saw people on 6 figures working freelance who were like around the age of 30, some of them even slightly younger, who were good at their job as well. They weren't like blagging it. They were genuinely really good, solving problems, doing what needed to be done and more, and getting recognized for it. And they were maximizing their output as well. So what's the earning potential? A lot of academies, a lot of entry level roles will start between the 20 to 30K a year mark. Okay. So if you're in a higher earning job at the moment, but it's got a ceiling, don't be afraid to take a pay cut. I've got this in another video of how to get a better job. I make it a big point in that video. If there's more earning potential in another career and you can take the hit for maybe a year or two, you could then maximize your earning potential and be on 1.5, maybe 2 times the money you're on now in your current career, then do it, right? Why would you not? Just a bit of short-term pain for long-term gain, right? That's what life is all about ultimately. Gym, everything is you have to have that mindset. So honestly, after you get your first role, it's up to you. Genuinely it is. If you want to stay in the same company, it's likely they're gonna dangle the carrot and drip feed the pay rises, because why wouldn't they? That is within their interest to do that. But like I said earlier, my biggest advice to you is stay somewhere for at least a few years. I'm not saying to company hop, that will look bad as well. But if you get a golden opportunity, like 6 months was in my first role, I got an opportunity to join a startup and it was one of the best choices I ever made, okay? So if you get a golden opportunity like that, take it. But if you don't, do as much training as you can within your company. If they pay for training, take it. Whatever tech training there is, take it. Keep an eye on what companies and what technologies are at the forefront of their given market, because there's so many niches in tech, there's so many markets within the tech industry. If there's a specific tool set which is at the forefront of the market, like ServiceNow is for what I do, then go after that tool. Don't do something that everyone else does. Do something which is sought after and then get skilled in it. Solve a problem in your organization you're currently in that tool set. And then if your current job, if you go in demanding a certain amount of pay rise in the right way, right? In the right way, based on the market value of the skill set that you now have, if they won't match it, you then have two choices. You can see it out for a bit longer and see if they do recognize and give you the responsibility you deserve and the pay rise you deserve, or then you can move on to a company that will recognize it. And quite quickly, I know a lot of people, genuinely a lot of people that went from earning around 20 to 30K to earning between 40 and 60K, genuinely up to that amount of money. So you can see quite a big jump there within a few years, whereas other jobs, it's more incremental, right? And again, after that, once you've done a lot of tech jobs for, I would say, you want probably about 2 to 3 years at least in the bank before you would consider doing freelance. You could do it earlier than that, and a lot of people will tell you shouldn't if you've got the ability, but on paper, people will hold it against you. And so what I did, I think around the 2 to 3 year mark after being permanent, I then went freelance. I have done a bit of a permanent role in between my freelance journey, but I've been majority freelance ever since, and I've never really looked back apart from one time when I started growing my other business, and that's another story. But a lot of the people I know go freelance who are genuinely good will stay freelance because the earning potential is a lot more. You can run it through a business, through a limited company, and then take benefits from that as well, right? Because you're taking on the risk. You don't get paid for holidays, you don't get benefits, but you get more money. So there's pros and cons there. You don't have to go freelance, but the point is, it's the same point. It's the same thing I said earlier. It's all up to you. After you get your foot in the door, it's like playing chess. Whatever moves you want to make on the chessboard that help you and help the company you're serving, everybody wins, right? Now, the last point I want to come to is, let me finish what's the earning potential, right? I haven't given you what's the upper ceiling. Honestly, there's so many freelance roles out there, you can earn 6 figures plus. Okay, that's what I'll say on that front. Now, the earning potential is what you want to make it. If you're running a business in the right way in tech, you have what we call the right to substitute, which means that you can bring on other people in the role. Now, there's loads of good offshore resources, people in other parts of the world who get paid a lot less for the same job that they do. Whether that's right or wrong, you can argue about that in the comments. But the point here is you can then take on maybe other freelance stuff. You can grow out your business arm. So instead of just being like a contractor to one company and taking on one client, you can take on multiple and actually build it out into a proper, like, small startup business where you've got other freelancers or maybe even permanent employees helping you, and then the earning potential is this, the sky's the limit then. And I know a lot of people who have done that where, like I said at the start, they've grown consultancies from their contracting arm. They've then grown it into a small to medium-sized company. They've been bought out by a bigger consultancy and rode off into the sunset with, a nice big payout. So yeah, it's all up to you where you want to take it and what you want to do with it. Okay. Another point I want to make on your journey is don't burn bridges. Okay. It wasn't in my notes, but it came up when I was talking. Don't burn bridges, guys. Really, really important. I know a lot of people in tech, especially because, like I said, it's quite easy if you're good and you upskill yourself and you do the right things to make big jumps, right? The right jumps. You're not blagging. You're not lying on your CV. You've solved a problem in your current organization, like I said earlier, that maybe wasn't part of your current job description. Maybe it's something your senior should be doing, but they're not doing. You get recognized or you don't, and either you get a big salary jump or you then move. The key thing is, if you're moving, don't burn bridges, guys, okay? Leave in the right way, because these niches in technology can sometimes be small markets and you'll come across the same faces and names. And eventually you may or may not cross paths again. And if you're freelance, it's really about what business is right in front of you that you can take. If you're permanent, you're a bit safer in that regard, where you should be part of a company, and as long as the company doesn't go under, you should be fine. You should be sound. If you're freelance, there's only so many players in that industry or that niche if it's a smaller technology niche. So you're probably going to come across the same faces again. If you burn those bridges, they're not going to want to work with you again, no matter how skilled you are. So don't burn bridges, guys. Leave on a good note. Hand over your work properly, and leave a good name for yourself. Really key thing. And someone I respect a lot, who is a key part of my journey, told me that very early on, so it stuck with me. The last point is transferable skills. So a lot of people think that they couldn't do a tech type job. I've said this to my girlfriend. I've said this to other people, that there are so many jobs these days which are kind of IT jobs, but they're not. And this is why I've said this to quite a few friends. Like, everybody's got an IT job these days, and obviously not everybody does. But if you use any kind of IT system, if you process emails, if you use Teams, I'm not saying you're a techie. I'm not saying you can script, but maybe you can requirements gather. Maybe you can refine processes. And you might think, are these even jobs, Dan? Yes, they are, guys, right? And they are like good jobs, good earning jobs. There's a job role called a business analyst, which a lot of people, I didn't know about this when I was getting into tech in the beginning. And it's like all of the tech role, apart from actually doing the build of the tech and understanding how to do the scripting, right? If you understand a process and a technology and how it could be improved, but you don't know exactly how to do it, just coming up with improvements is a job role in itself. Now, if you can do both, even better, right? But a lot of people are either BA or they're techies, right? Like I said earlier, if you can chat a little bit and you're technical, oh my God, you can really do well in IT. But if you can chat a little bit, but you understand the problems that need to be solved, you understand from a high level why what is being done needs to be done. Some techies, or a lot of techies, don't. You'll say to them, I need a script that does X. It should work like this. They can do it. But if they have to think and make decisions, sometimes they fall over and they just can't do it, right? It depends at what level you're at. Whereas a BA, a good business analyst, will figure out, actually, it should probably be like this because of X, Y, Z. The business have this problem, so we need to have a new process that works like this. I know a lot of people in different jobs which are not primarily IT-based jobs, but they use a lot of IT-based tools like Excel, like Teams, whatever it is, and they work out that there's key processes they're doing that are just not smart. I'll give you a quick example. Someone close to me was in a finance-based role. They were working on like a payment run, and they had to take details from one system to another system. And my question to them, we talked about it, was can't you integrate the systems? Can't you just get them to automatically talk to each other? Now, in that finance role, they're not supposed to be technical. They're not supposed to think like that. They're just supposed to kind of do what their role is, which is to process the payment run. My point being here is, if you're someone that goes outside of your role, still does your day job, so everybody else is kept happy, right? You tick all their boxes, who just want to toe the line, but then you go above and beyond and you find out how it could be integrated, or you get in touch with a tech person that could do it, or you actually work out how to do it yourself. You can see how a transferable skill of understanding your subject matter has now allowed you to get into the realm of tech, okay? So my point being, if you're in another role and you're thinking, how is a complete career change for me, but I've always wanted to get into tech, there's probably a lot of things that you currently do that are transferable. So don't limit yourself. Like I said before, you can very much tailor your CV. It's not about lying on your CV. It's about picking out the good bits that relate to the role you're going to. So if you've improved processes, that's relevant in a tech role, that's relevant in a finance role. Pick an industry that's probably relevant. You just have to zoom out a bit of on a higher level and go, well, I can communicate to people well. I can use Excel, right? What are the things you can do in your job? Not what job do you have. I talked about this in my other video, and I'll probably link it at the end, how to get a better job, and I break it down. But it's not about sometimes I've done this role, so I can only do this role. It's about what skills did that role give you? What skills are required in this different role that you want to get to, right? And I just want to make that very clear that if you're in IT and you want to go do something else, there's a lot of transferable skills. If you're in something else and you want to go to IT, there's a lot of transferable skills. And again, you can jump the queue in the right way, but it's about putting yourself forward for roles. It's about getting yourself outside of your comfort zone and just going for it. Okay? Now, I hope this has been helpful, guys. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell. There's probably going to be a video here or here, and I'll see you in the next one.